Salutations. So, I've had this conversation 2 or 3 times, not just with myself, people. uh, Scorpion and the frog, the flame and the torch, spirit, matter, crossing the river, right? With the scorpion and the frog, we can see it end with them dying in the middle of the river, or we can see it that their bodies wash up to shore and the vessels carry a spark across, as in the bacteria, the fungus, or whatever that consumes the body by it being there, carried in their dead bodies, makes it across. If you look at it as the torch is consumed by the fire. The matter is consumed by the spirit, but it gets it across the water to the other side, because the fire couldn't endure the water without the torch. So it's inevitable that as torch, you don't make it. Even if you would make it, you would simply fuel the fire to spread on the other side. In the torch, it's DNA molecule, right? The passing life. As a human, you pass it on, right? And for eons, the Holy Spirit has been concealed in generation. And collectively, we work together, but we're born ignorant. And it's only by reminding each other that we gain any solace. It's like how, the garden. So I've also been, my whole life's my garden, other than stories. And the thing that's been going on lately, or that's come up, so I dug out clay so that the mycelia would have enough ground to exist in, like how the mushroom kingdom is underground. The mushrooms themselves are just fruiting bodies, because mycelia act as a network to transfer nutrients from plants to plant in the root system. Excuse me. So I have these plants that, because of sunflowers and morning glories blotting out the sun, they didn't grow last year. But this year, because I didn't put the sunflowers there and any ones that grew, I pulled out, and I put vegetables in there, which are, just little. These plants that weren't there last year grew up, because what people have, and studies have shown this, that people think photosynthesis is required to keep a plant alive. And it's required for a plant to grow, bloom, and fruit. That's for sure. But in a sufficient ecosystem, the mycelium will keep a plant alive at the bed of a forest so that it can basically survive. And in a forest, it's not usually so thick. Like a small plant might just grow and fruit and die real fast. But this even ensures that the roots survive, so that basically without the sun, the plant doesn't strive up. It doesn't have the energy to do that. But the roots are kept alive in darkness. And for whatever reason, say a fire tears through the forest, these plants that had lived underground in the fungus, with the aid of the fungus and the other roots, the trees do most of the photosynthesizing, and because they have so much excess, because you can only use so much energy at once, otherwise it dissipates out, and the mycelium act as energy transfers, like not just batteries to consume it, but they know which roots need what things, because there's a deficiency from what they pull out of the soil. It leaves a chemical trace, or lack of a chemical trace, in the presence of the other plants. Like they give off signals. It resonates, but there's also chemical signals that scientists could put radioactive material into and trace nutrients and different things. And that's how these new studies were done. But this is perfect analogy for spiritual development and the idea of like the matrix, or like even a cocoon where you live in darkness until a certain point, you know. But in our society, the government keeps people. Okay, forget about that. The other thing I was talking to with somebody was death, of course, because that's what this whole thing was about. Was the plants aren't dead; they're in a state of like hibernation. But the thing about, okay, the reason they're so good at it is they understand what death is, and that to use their energy to grow would risk their life. They would die if you don't get to the bloom, so you wait to grow till you're in the sun. Okay, tie that on bow. Death process begins for a person when they come in contact with a thing that brings about their death. Some people, that's a bullet to the head. Other people get sick and they endure years. The thing that leads you to your death, hence initiation. You confront death before initiation. Let's just go with it. Drugs as initiation give you this, okay? But the difference between entheogens and, say, like all the other ones, is the death the other ones offer and the experience is real. More real. Okay. There's the experience of a the near-death experience, as in you almost die. And then there's the psychoactively produced near-death experience, which brings about novelty and creativity and all the experiences we have. But what it always comes down to is that you end up in that room and the world disappears out there. And what happens is just us in that room. Because the first part of dying is the material, earth, shed earth. So our culture is full of homeless people on drugs because they aren't homeless. It's not a homeless problem. It's a mass amount of people on their way to die probably. And the first thing they've shed is their material possessions. I would know all about that. Because when you're way down, you can only carry so much. And no cup can runneth over if you don't have a cup to catch the shit given. You just consume it. That's the problem these people are in. And but that's basically as far as we got. Well, other than the Bodhisattva, whereas in come back to help souls suffering. But if we're all one, would not that mean no one has ever actually gone back to the state of one? Because had that one done that, there wouldn't be a state like this, right? If we're all one, any one of us getting off the wheel brings about everyone getting off the wheel, because there isn't a separate soul to get out. So filling up the well with snow, knowing it's filling up the well with snow, still becomes the last skin to shed. Because if we didn't want to save people, there wouldn't be people needing saving. It makes our karma bring about people to save, which is good. Compassion is ethics. Somebody sent something interesting. Loveless compassion? I don't know, it struck me very wrong, but I knew what he was saying. Mercy and judgment given unequally, properly, is what compassion is. Mercy. Right, mercy and judgment balance each other. Time. Building machine. Because each individual is driven to do something. Oh, okay, yeah. I don't even need to say that again. I used to think that there was something in the future that was sending messages back in time to me. And that's where this death comes from, this death talk. Because it's my death that is sending things back to me. Via neshama is the only way I can describe it. Nefesh, the flesh, is bound to karma, time and space. But our higher self, holy guardian angel, is not. It's free from bondage. So, in the sense that if one were ever to have knowledge and conversation with such a thing, it would ensure that you had inside information from beyond not just the veil, but this veil. Because as soon as things are introduced from the future, it begins the feedback loop, where one thing ensures the other. And where did it begin? A mirror is set up and light begins reflecting. The information begins reflecting back and forth. Which is where stabilizing consciousness in a vessel becomes important, because people freak out, man. We're driven by emotions and desires. We don't want to build a temple just to build it. We want to build it to impress, or to save, or to reason. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast willed it, it shall be done. Right? Because it loves it, to will it. But it doesn't mean it understands what thou hast willed. Because we say we want, but thou, it's like you didn't come, like Neo You didn't come here to make a decision. You came here to understand why you made a decision. A chemical can't help react when put up against the chemical it reacts with. Hence, explosive. Like bombs. That's how we make bombs. Acid and base talk. I know it's a bummer that they say acid because it implies we're eating away, but people have a lot of armor that is covering our hearts, so it might not be the worst thing we labeled something great with. Whoa. Excuse me. I'm rambling, so I'm probably just going to stop. Oh, light body is sacred geometry. Okay. Sacred geometry is the light body, is the community, is the way to save the self. The order of the full moons lately have been just... And the reason I get so excited when some people talk is they say stuff nearly how I want to say whatever's been bugging me. Like that one kid that was talking about building shit with lights and shit. I had just been talking to a girl on Instagram, and she has this whole thing with sound. And one of my Tool Army pattern drawings looked like one of the resonant frequencies of one of the sounds she uses, that she thinks you can use. She thinks you can use sounds to give yourself DMT-like experiences. And this is the lacrimology box. And then the more I kept thinking about it, I was like, well, it would be better if you could interact with the shape and the sound, because if you're making the sound, you have a feedback loop. And then I realized that's what playing music is. So, because I just kept thinking if you could hit something or blow, because then you're breathing through a tube, like a flute or something, you could play the frequency. It's music, right? We have the technology, people. That's why I just are right fucking there to just sitting in a room, popping headphones on, watching a thing, and dancing right the fuck through whatever's in your way. Move mountains if you must. It's like how they did rocks, move them with sound, because things vibrate. And if a thing is vibrating fast enough, it weighs different. For making it resonate against the other things. It's magnetism. Magnets, man. It doesn't weigh something. The weight doesn't matter if it's being repelled with its same force. Resonating the same force against something makes it weightless. So we can do this with electromagnets. Like if I can think of this alone in my room, I know the hidden hand has thought of such things. Like why we don't have magnetic tracks from New York to LA is only because it costs money and we still play money games. I hate this game. I'm really trying to get over it, but it's my least favorite. Okay, I'm just bitching now. Love ya.